Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis where sunflowers grow way above your head. This sunflower is so gorgeous. The bees that are on it have pollen all over them, so much to the point that I couldn't even recognize them. I didn't know what bug it was. Well, if you're enjoying my channel, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, even hit that notification bell to get notified anytime a new video comes out. Today we're going to give you another garden tour. We're going to do a little weekly walkabout and check out what's happening in the garden. Come on along. As you can see, there's quite a bit that's flowering right now on my deck. I believe this is a mandevilla and it is just blossoming to its heart content. I have some pansies that are still really enjoying the season, along with some lobelia. And all of these petunias are flowering, and my canna is really doing well right now. And then looking the other way, on the deck we have my clematis, which is continuing to put out new growth, and my foxglove is just finishing up, with my little lime hydrangea over here that is just putting out the blooms at this point. It's pretty. And I have my two succulent arrangements over here. Got one here on this table and then one over on the corner of the deck, which I think look just really stunning on the corner. And also my little fig. And then over here you'll see I have a really excellent set of proven winners strawberries. These are the buried treasure kind. There are red, pink, and white blooms in here, and I've been meaning to, separate them out a bit. Oh, look, here's a really nice looking berry, and look at all these little ones starting. But I haven't gotten around to separating them out, and now they're fruiting so much that I don't want to disturb them. This is a nice rosemary topiary. And some more canna. I have some summer squash over here that's growing really well. I've got a couple. I've harvested some already as well. And up here some raspberries, which I have just been pulling off as they ripen. And my red hot poker is putting out another bloom stalk, so that's exciting. And all my dahlias are getting their bloom stalks right now. So let's just step down into the potager garden here and take a look at what's going on. I have a lot of David phlox which bloom white, and they are starting to bud up. A few of them are opening in other parts of the yard. And my Cleopatra coneflower is really pretty. Oops, there's a weed. Pull them when you see them, guys. That's the easiest way to do it and keep up with it. Here's some more of those gigantuan sunflowers. These haven't quite opened up yet. And lots of cherry tomatoes down here. I was surprised to see that the chipmunks really like cherry tomatoes. I did not know that before this year. I thought it was just the groundhogs, but the chipmunks, I find them eating them everywhere around the yard. Hopefully I don't have to stop this video, but I'm getting quite a bit of wind here. There was some thunder earlier, like it might rain. So I have this hydrangea here that is a strawberry sundae. You can see the red stems on it, the dark pink. And then up here we have the angel gourd trumpet vine. And I'm going to try to get a little closer for you just to show you what the gourds look like, because I do have quite a few of them growing on. Here's one. Won't those make cute decorations this fall? Anyways, it's kind of trying to take over this whole area, this whole side of my house, so I've had to keep trimming it back because I really only want a handful of them. I don't want, a ton, just a few for decorating and having a little fun with and watching them grow. I have some larger glacier tomatoes that are growing on here. Lots of them. And a whole lot of onions that I think are almost ready. The tops are starting to fall over. Just look at the size of those onions. They look fantastic. I'm so excited to try some fresh onions from the garden. I've never grown this kind before. And another squash plant right here. And these are supposed to be key lime marigolds, but they look more like lemon meringue to me, maybe. I don't know what you guys think, but it definitely appears to be more of a yellow than a green. And my sweet red peppers are doing really well. And my hot and heavy peppers are also doing great. You guys, it's starting to rain on me now. This wasn't supposed to happen. I've been moving some of this burgundy glow ajuga around my yard because it does spread, but it spreads slowly. And so I kind of have it here covering the edge, and as it gets better and creeps into the vegetables, I take some little pieces off and put it around. Okay, we're gonna try this tour getting going again. The skies just opened up and poured on me for a minute there, and had to go inside and take cover. But now we're back out and looking at the pink mink with some pretty dewdrops on it. Well, raindrops actually. It's looking really lovely. I can't wait to see this Woodula next year and how big that gets. I just love the color of the foliage on that. So some of my flowers will be a little bit splayed out because it really did just rain quite dramatically. I actually thought it was hail at first. The size of the raindrops were so big. So here's my Pinky Winky hydrangea back here. The blooms are definitely looking quite lovely and coming on. And my begonias have adapted to being planted in the ground here and have got quite a few blooms. And my phlox have put on a lot of new growth, and I think I'm going to be expecting a second flowering of the garden phlox here shortly. All my Patriot Hostas are starting to put out their flowers, and because of the size of the blooms and the colors, I do actually like to leave them because I think they're really beautiful. They're kind of a striped lavender color. These coneflowers just are magnificent. I mean, they're almost 5 feet tall this year. It's very impressive. I don't think I've ever had them this tall before. And then just to kind of pan over so you can see what this next bed looks like before we look a little closer at it. This hydrangea is starting to flower. Almost all of my hydrangeas are in bloom at this point, or at least starting to bloom. I think we'll be probably at peak in about maybe 2 weeks. I planted a lot of new hydrangeas last year, and just look at the head on this one. So this is not an Invincible, but it is a giant bloom. This is the Seaside Bar Harbor Seaside Serenade, and it's giant. This is its first full year being in the ground. I planted it last year. This is the arborescens type, the smooth hydrangea, and I have another hydrangea back there. And you can see this pulmonaria up front here that I had planted and divided is got some beautiful new growth on it. And this is the same hydrangea that I just showed you, but its first set of flowers have flopped over, and it has put out a whole bunch of new growth to the point where it's going to have another flush of big white blooms. I just love the combination of this 9-bark with this fern and the way that it's kind of drooping over from the rain today is just magnificent. Look at those colors together. The maroon on the fern along with that burgundy on the 9 bark. And here's the 2 pulmonaria that I divided a little less than 2 weeks ago, and they're looking quite fantastic. All of my hostas, I think, are just doing really well this year. I'm very happy with them. And before we enter the woodland garden, let's take a look from this side at the tropical garden here at the end of the pool. My coffee cups are doing amazing. And the banana trees, I just am loving these this year. I'm probably going to get them next year as well. I really like the way that they look. They do provide quite a statement. I love large leaf plants. There's something about them. The hibiscus over at the far end there is not yet in bloom, but I can tell it's just getting ready to. We're just starting to have some nice sunny days again here. We've had so much rain. And just look at all of the shoots from these dahlias that are putting up buds for me. Still waiting on most of them to bloom, but I do have some of them down here. And I like the contrast with that lighter privet foliage that is on those bushes there. So this one's just looking really pretty. I'm so glad that I had the idea to put this half moon bed at the end of this garden, because it really has changed the way that it feels. It kind of sets the pool off as its own little area. Which is not really a little area, it's fairly large, but hopefully you get my point in terms of it being like a garden room almost, even though it's so big. So here's some more of those David phlox that are starting to bloom. They smell good. They don't get a lot of powdery mildew. They do well in part shade. They do well in dry part shade, part sun. They probably do pretty well in sun, but I would say that they probably prefer part sun, especially in a hotter climate. This area is filling in nicely. This hosta I transplanted just a few weeks ago. It's already put on a lot of new growth, which is not typical this time of year, because usually this time of year we're very dry. But because we've had so much rain, I've been able to do some transplanting in the summer that would not be normal, including these 2 big hostas as well. And so things have thrived. And I haven't had to baby them as much as I normally would have to this time of year after transplanting, because normally I would have to get out the hose, you know, almost every day or at least every other day after transplanting something. But doesn't this entryway just look gorgeous with the bright chartreuse of the Haconachloe grass? I can hardly pronounce it sometimes, I swear. Oh, Haconachloa. I think I said it right that time. I think I get a little tongue-tied sometimes. This hosta right here, I love it when you can see some of the edges starting to get that ripple in them. It's just really beautiful. Very natural beauty. And all of this has just filled out really well. Those heucheras that I divided over here are doing well also. And since the last time I did a tour, I divided some of these Virginia just to kind of create a little bit more of a front border there along the rocks, and to help them continue to spread. So I would like them to be a little bit bushier over here, and they actually do quite well in dry shade. They don't like being overly moist. And then I had split this blue hosta here so that I think I told you last time I was going to wait to do that. Like, that was a long-term plan to move that blue hosta, but I decided to move it already just to give this oak leaf hydrangea a little bit more space this year and next year and see how it grows. And I moved this green hosta up here and divided the blue hosta into two. And I moved this right up here, so I think everything's a little bit better spaced out in here. And over in this bed, I also felt like some of the Patriot Hostas were not quite lined up right, so I moved a couple of them a little bit closer to the border so that that line was a little bit better. And I added a rose. So this is Grandma's Blessing Rose. I found this one on clearance. And it is a pink rose, and I think it's going to go really well with this music box rose that I have over here. And I really like the effect of having that spiky chive plant in between the two roses. And believe it or not, the chives are blooming for the second time this year. After I cut them back, they grew back and have put on some new blossoms, which is quite nice. Now these flax right here are going to bloom pink, so we'll see that probably in the next tour happening. I also divided one of these small hostas right here, the chartreuse ones, to put one on the corner here because it was a little bit bare. And everything's just looking really healthy right now, I think. I did take out my boxwood. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's what I took out over here was my dying boxwood topiary, and put this Sun King Aurelia here that I got. I finally gave up on it. I probably gave up too soon because right now is when this one over here is really starting to push out some new growth and starting to look much healthier than it did before. And again, this is a variegated boxwood, so you can see very green and white, but I'm really happy to see it coming back. Now I also managed to divide another August Moon hosta from the front, and so I extended this bed and put it way down at the end, so I'll show you that. You can see this chive over here though is also blooming again. And the liatris, I have them scattered throughout the beds. I just put the liatris in after dividing them last year. So next year the clumps will be thicker and more vibrant and have more flowers. So this one right down here is the new hosta that I put in. And so it kind of completes this row of August Moon hostas. And I think this bed is finally starting to look more like a garden and a little less like a pile of old sticks, which is fantastic. So just kind of step back, give you a view of this from the long ways and see how it looks from afar and how it kind of comes together. So you can see that as I start to get the structure of some of these small trees, bushes that I have planted in here, I think it's going to even look more pronounced. I just really enjoy having the paths to walk around during the day and check in on my garden and see how things are growing. One of the best decisions I made, I think, putting in that path. I'm gonna share my soapwort again because while it's not an amazing flower, it smells so good. Brings back so many memories of childhood. I wonder, do you guys have a flower that you grow because of something that your grandma did or your mom did or someone in your family did, and it reminds you of them whenever you smell it or see it? This one is a flower of my grandmother. My rose of Sharon is starting to get much taller. It's got lots of buds on it. I think it has a little ways to go before they are ready to shoot out and show flowers. But it's nice to start finally getting some of that height also in this part of the bed. Again, that's one of the things that I'm trying to go for here. Oh, and before I forget, you guys, those that's a You Glow Girl birch leaf spirea back there, and it's doing pretty good. But you remember I removed those two from the other part of my garden. Well, I couldn't bring myself to completely get rid of them, so I took them into my way back garden, and I thought, well, I'll just plant them where nothing else is and see what happens. If they die, it doesn't matter. You see those two mounds back there that are looking incredibly healthy? Yeah, those are those bushes. So apparently maybe they just needed a little bit more shade, a little bit more sheltered site to be happy. I'm not sure, but they really are thriving in that spot, even more so than they are in these beds. And the only thing I can think of is that they don't have full sun, which on the tag they said full sun, so sometimes it's not always true, and you have to just kind of move things around your yard and find what works. So yeah, this chive is even starting to put on new buds, and it's July. And isn't my Eden climbing rose so pretty? I'm really trying to get it to climb and go horizontal here from either side, but at the same time I have these gorgeous blooms up at the top. Love it. I like the colors of the heuchera in this bed. My rose down here is just gone through a blooming stage, and it's starting to put on some new growth to create some new blooms. And this salvia, this is the Violet Riot from the Color Spires series with Proven Winners. And you can see they're putting out another flush of blooms here. And it looks very nice next to the Sparberry with all of its golden color and its red on its new growth. So I got some other plants on clearance recently. Sorry I didn't show you right away, but I got these lilies. These are going to bloom a pink lily. They're an upright one, and they have kind of a white center with dark pink around the end, and I think that that's going to be a really nice kind of pop-up for a different level, a different height of flower at a time when maybe other things are not in bloom. I got them on clearance obviously because they had finished blooming, so there's going to be no blooms on them this year, but that's one thing to definitely look for when you're shopping for plants, is it something that they're selling just because it's finished blooming. So here's the tag. It's the Tiny Diamond Asiatic Lily, and just look at that color and this bed. I think that's really going to be pretty. And this is hardy down to zone 4. And all of the heucheras that I transplanted are looking good. You can now start to see a little bit of the coloration on this New Dawn or Delta Dawn heuchera, which goes very well with the barberry that's next to it. And this hydrangea is almost in full bloom now. It still has some buds on it that haven't completely fleshed out, but I think it looks absolutely gorgeous, and I love the fact that it's got these gold mop head cypresses on either side of it. And just look at the color of this coneflower peeking out from behind. Doesn't that just look like a glorious sunset? I love that color. That color, not so much. But it's still there until I decide what to put there instead. This is just a little bit of alyssum that's in here. Those two are really the only two that are doing great. Most of the other ones seem to be a bit weak, and I'm not sure why. They're in the exact same bed, in the same position in sun, but they're just not as happy. Almost all of the little cuttings that I've taken of the sedum are taking well. They appear to be rooting. And so those are going to grow on. And look how the maple here and this Quickfire Hydrangea are starting to look with their colors together. Again, can you imagine if these start to touch each other as they grow a little bigger and stretch out? That would be so pretty. And some more of the small sedums that I have tucked in are growing on. This hydrangea is also looking amazing, and I have a lily that's getting ready to bloom. It's kind of leaning up against it there, a little artfully, very pretty. And I am looking forward to this Dulce Spearmint heuchera getting big enough so that I can divide it, because I absolutely love the color of that. It's almost like a blue-green mint. So hard to even describe that type of color sometimes. It's just so pretty. And so many flowers in this area. I'm still waiting on my buds to really come on this hydrangea, but I think they're coming. It's just a little bit slower than I thought it would be. And my daylilies are still going. So I'm really impressed by the length of time that I've been getting blooms out of them. And you can see that my alliums here, I believe these are the millennial alliums, because they have the greener foliage as opposed to the serendipity, which has a little bluer foliage. We tried to figure out what the difference was in one of my last videos, and that's what we found. But pretty soon those blooms will be popping open. It's gorgeous. I love the shape, you know, that kind of upright with the pom-pom look at the top. And I'm really also enjoying this mixture over here with the Cleopatra coneflowers on either side of this hydrangea. Can you imagine if this hydrangea is a little bit higher and the coneflowers are just kind of under the story? That's gonna look really cool. And still am loving that Verbena bonariensis up against that August moon hosta. Look at that contrast. And these Cleopatra coneflowers, they just glow. I'm not a big fan of yellow, but this kind of creamy, buttery yellow, I definitely am enjoying. These concrete urns, I feel like I'm definitely getting what I desired out of them. Just look at the blooms. So pretty, just so full. I haven't gotten a second bloom out of these penstemon yet. I think it is because we haven't had enough sunshine. So I'm hoping that soon we will get some, because I want to see this Midnight Masquerade penstemon bloom again as well. So I planted some of those new sedums that I got on clearance right along this edge here. I think that looks really cool when you have some sedum growing along the rocks or concrete. So looking forward to how that does. I did cut it back a little bit, and you can see some of it's putting on, see if I can show you this, some new growth. You see these little two tiny heads and the one right there. So they look like they're happy where I put them. And these salvia are still putting out some additional little blooms. No blooms on this hydrangea yet, which is surprising to me. And I've cut quite a few of the blooms off of these hydrangeas just to get them to bush out and to enjoy their first year and get acclimated to their new spot. But you can see they're really putting on some nice new growth towards the base there. And over here, my phlox are putting on some new buds. So those are going to rebloom. That's going to be magnificent. And I got some new ones over here. I had the red columbine, and I thought it was pink when I bought it, but they put the wrong thing in the package. So now I have Opening Act Ultra Pink Phlox. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. And I got these on clearance. I divided it into 2 plants, and hopefully it will even flower right now. So this is a different color than the other ones that I have. I have the blush and I have the Pinkadot, and this is the ultra pink. So this is the pinkest that they have, and it's hardy in zones 4 to 8. Grows up to 3 feet tall. So I'm excited. I think that this one is actually going to put on some additional blooms. And I want to show you what it looks like. Here it is. Very pink. And this hibiscus over here is also getting some buds. And all of my liatris is in its splendor. My dwarf cherry tree's doing well. With the royal velvet petunias and the pansies and the parsley in the bottom there. All right, let's take a look in the front yard. Oh, also, even the hydrangea sticks that I set next to my compost have taken root and are flowering. That's exciting. I have one on the other side here as well that has some little buds on it. Okay, so as we come through the gate, I'm trying something a little different here because I have not had a lot of luck. I'm going to try a hosta back here. This is a Great Expectations hosta. Going to see how that does. It's supposed to get quite large, and I'm really hoping that it does. And so hopefully between these 2 hostas that will help fill in this bed a bit. And as you can see, my burning bush is almost a bush form again. So it grows back quite fast. Over here, what I believe is my Bobo hydrangea is doing fantastic. It has so many blooms, I can hardly even believe it. And look at that combo with those impatiens. And then over here I have another coneflower from that Powwow Cheyenne collection. That one's really pretty too. I actually like that kind of rusty burgundy color. You can see the botany is still flowering. And this, my friends, is probably the best you'll see the liatris. You can actually start to see that the tops are starting to go out of bloom. So the blooms are almost all the way to the bottom of the bloom stalk, and they're starting to die off at the top, but it's already been blooming for almost 2 weeks, and will probably be in bloom a little bit still on our next tour in a week. Everything's looking good over here. I am thinking about moving this azalea back a little bit further from the edge here. I don't know why I didn't plant it at the same depth as the other one, but I didn't, so I may do that this fall. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. We'll see. And this PG hydrangea standard, look at that. It's so pretty. Look at the colors of it. Just to see that with the ferns and the liatris and the other hydrangea. It's gorgeous. And then all of these coneflowers, you guys. Just gonna back up a little bit and try to show you this from the side, so you can get a sense of how magnificent these coneflowers are this year. I mean, wow. And then there's also some blooms of pink that are in there from the phlox. And I have a little yellow calibrachoa and patoka tucked into here. But you can see some of the phloxes in here as well. I believe it's the Laura phlox. I'm not positive. This was something that I got out of someone else's yard. But it's one of the more old-fashioned varieties. It only blooms once. Although if you deadhead it, it will rebloom again shortly thereafter. Look at this coneflower. Look at it. It's so big. This is my hand. Still really happy with getting this planting of the weeping crabapple in. And this new garden bed is really filling out. Oh, now that the coneflowers are blooming and the black scallop ajuga in the front is starting to spread. I'm just so excited to see more green than brown in this bed. And I love the black elderberry. Doesn't that look cool against that juniper bush? I love it. Look at the scallops on this ajuga. Such an intense color. Coneflowers are still going out by the mailbox also. You can see how the garden looks from the street side over here. I'm going to show you my newly pruned tree. I spent quite a bit of time pruning this tree, and I have done a video on it. So unfortunately I ran out of some of the film, but I think that it turned out well. It was getting very, very wide and creeping out beyond the boundaries of the bed. So I wanted to rejuvenate it in a way that it still stayed in context and in scale with the rest of the garden. But really the liatris and the coneflowers are the show here right now, and the sedum are putting on their bloom heads. Somebody said they're starting to see some annuals on sale in their area, and I really haven't. There really haven't been any good ones for me, so I don't have a lot of annuals filling up spots that I normally would, but that's okay. I don't mind. So I'm also thinking about planting out this bed now that I have a little bit of room under the canopy and there's a little more sunlight under there, and thinking about what's going to go in there. So, and then just looking at it again from the back side, loving the way those heucheras have kind of helped to anchor that bed. My oak leaf hydrangea still is not blooming, you guys. I don't know what's going on. I think we're just not having enough sunny days. We'll see. This guy over here, my maple, with the new little bed underneath it, is starting to put out some blooms with the Paint the Town Magenta Dianthus. One of them is starting to bloom. And the phlox that is behind it is putting on some buds. So we'll get to see what that one looks like blooming in the yard. I really am happy that I chose this particular hosta because I like the way that it lightens up the ground. It contrasts really well with the green grass. So when I look out the window, I can see it really easily. It just catches your eye. The coneflowers back here, these are the Magnus coneflowers, and they are starting to bloom now. So you can see they have a little bit deeper of a color, but there's not a huge difference. Their leaves are a little bit darker and have a little bit more of a burgundy hue to them, but that's about it. I've definitely been spotting a lot more rabbits and deer around the yard again, and so I am gonna have to get on spraying the yard more routinely again. That's okay. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's also not that horrible. And again, this fothergill, you guys, it's still putting on new growth. I don't know what's going on with this bush this year. It's really happy, but it's not flowering. It's just interesting to see. I think it's been all of the rain. Lots of rain and not a ton of sun. My spireas are starting to put on some new growth. You can see that bright green foliage on it. It's interesting to watch some of the new foliage on the maidenhair ferns come out because of the color. Now over here I had put some chives in this bed, but I decided I didn't like it. So I've got this hosta there now, and I like that a whole lot better. You can see the spirea next to it is also putting on some nice new growth. I think it's just happy to have the extra airspace. And since moving that sky pencil holly, I think it's very happy to be in its new spot. I also decided to divide this hosta right here. This is the autumn frost hosta. It's already starting to put out some nice new growth. In here you can see the new little leaves coming on. And not only do I have two there, but I put it in the window box up here on either side of the heuchera, just to add a little bit more interest and some contrast, because everything was so dark in there before. So I think that looks nice with the hostas and the heuchera that I just planted. And I added, in addition to the heuchera in this large pot and the coleus, I added this Great Expectations hosta. So with those both in there, I'm hoping that they will overwinter and be perennial. Obviously the coleus will not, but if the heuchera and the hosta do, that will be lovely, and then I can just tuck some other annuals in around it. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed my garden tour today and walkabout. I sure enjoy taking you through the garden. It's so fun to look and see what flowers are happening and what maybe needs to change in the future, but also just what's good. I hope you have a great suburban oasis in your neck of the woods. Tell me what's growing good for you this month. Hit me up in the comments below and let me know what's growing. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.